Alright guys, we're going to make some kava today here at Rude Awakening. First thing I do when I come in to start the day off is I prep up the type of kava we're going to drink for the day. Normally there's a couple different strands or blends, whatever you want to call it, different kava from a different island. Today, you're going to sit and watch me make some Fijian kava. So we have our dry root here, we have our cheesecloth bag, we have 2 bowls, one a Tanoa, and of course our good old H2O. Alright, so first step in this process, this 3-pour process, is taking the kava, putting it into this cheesecloth bag, making sure that I'm not spilling any of the raw root outside of this bag and letting it get into the water. That can cause a potential stomach ache if you drink too much of that sediment. Alright, so here we are. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to take this kava, this pitcher of water, we're going to create 3 pours out of this, okay? So the first pour. Now from here, at this point, the muddy water kind of just oozes out of that, kind of just falls out of that bag. There's no need to squeeze it and wrestle around with the root in the bag. You're just gently moving it around and letting it all get loose and making that water as brown as possible with this first pour. So this first pour here is going to be the strongest of the 3 pours. Now on the islands, this pour is normally set aside for the chief because it's the strongest of the 3 pours. There's definitely a hierarchy when it comes to in the villages. You have the chief, you have the nobleman, the elders. Now this particular kava, as I mentioned, is from the Fiji Islands. We usually like to have a couple blends. I also have a Bana Watsu I'm going to prep up here in a little bit. But depending on the island that you go to, you're going to have a different type of kava. It might have different taste. Also, it might have a different effect. So what I mean by that is you can either get a heady kava or a heavy. So a heady kava is going to clear up a lot of your brain fog. It's going to just kind of relax you, take all that stress that kind of accumulates throughout your day, and just really takes that edge off. And that's a heady kava. So this Fijian is going to emphasize the mind properties. And then we have a Tongan blend that's more lends to a body kava, or a Solomon kava, lends more to a body. What that does is relaxes your muscles, helps with minor aches and joint pains. Maybe you went to the gym, you're sore, helps kind of loosen up those muscles. Alright, so I'm about 1 minute into kneading this kava. So the first pour here is you're going to see this very, very muddy pour. So we're going to take that and we're going to pour it into this Tanoa. This is the Tanoa that we have when we serve through a Rude Awakening. We do have some really cool ones that you'll see on the islands. This one back here, this was actually made by a chief's son from the Fiji Islands for Rude Awakening. When I first opened in 2022, it was kind of a landmark. It was a big moment, a milestone for the history of kava being introduced to New England. 6.4 million new kava drinkers have never been exposed to it. So it was kind of a nice way of passing the torch. And that symbolic Chinoa was a nice gesture. Alright, so this first batch here we're going to pour in. Customers would love if I served just that, because that's a good strong blend. But what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 of these blends. We're going to bring them all together, give a nice balanced kava. So this second pour, rinse and repeat 2 more times pretty much. So the second pour, the water is going to be muddy, but not quite as muddy. And by the time I get to my third pour, it's going to be a lot less muddy. So the effects of kava, a lot of people, look at this muddy water and they're like, why am I going to drink that? I'm not going to win any taste contests anytime soon. It's related to the black pepper plant. There's a bit of a bite to it. So the reason why people like to drink this stuff is, the calming benefits that you get from it. There's different, analogies and metaphors of what I've heard of the feeling that you get. I've heard, it feels like you're stepping out of a shower, a hot shower, or, it feels like you're in a sauna, that feeling. I've heard it feels like you're meditating with your eyes open. Some really cool experiences that you get. But overall, I like to say it just kind of turns off that chattering brain. It allows you to be present, mindful, in the moment. It has a very nice ability of acting as a social lubricant as well. So if, you're a little hesitant to pull the trigger on socializing outside, you come into an environment like Kava Bar, or number 2, and it acts as a nice mechanism to help, lower those social walls that everyone has. All right, so third and last pour. So as this goes down to the third pour and last pour, you're going to see that the kava is, still a little bit muddy, but a lot less muddy. So on the islands, I mentioned the first blend, the first pour, that's going to go to the chiefs. Well, the third pour usually goes to people that are lowest on the totem pole. Or if there's pregnant women that decide they want to have a little kava, this third pour is usually set aside for them. So the way that we serve our kava is, it's pretty traditional. On the island, they use half of a coconut shell. We have these little plastic bowls, but we call them shells. So the way that's served is 10 ounces. We have a ladle that's 5 ounces, and we take 2 spoonfuls of that, 2 ladlefuls of that, and that's 1 serving. My regulars usually drink, 3 or 4. My first timers, if you're a first timer, I normally say have 1 to 2 drinks, so you make sure you get the benefits and can kind of get that feeling. That feeling that we kind of shoot to get is it's not getting drunk or high. We don't get that feeling here. You do get though is we get rooted. So that feeling is coined as getting rooted, and the goal is to drink 2 or 3 of these and get that relaxed sensation. All right, so there we are. That's the third and final pour. All right, so this ladle here. All right, so there you have it. That's a full completed batch of kava. So that's the way we start our day off here at Rude Awakening. Fresh kava for the day. Now that we made kava, the only right thing to do is to serve kava, right? So here we are. All right, so on the island, instead of saying cheers, we say bula. Bula it literally means a celebration of life in Fijian. So every day at 7 o'clock here at Rude Awakening, you come by and we give away a free shell. And the kava tender, we cut off the music and we bring everyone together. We have our shells and we normally say something that we're grateful for. And we come together as a community. It's very symbolic and in line with what they would do on the islands. After a long day on the fields of working, usually come together as a community and we have kava. So we try and mimic that and embrace that that norm, that tradition here at Rude Awakening. So normally I like to say something we're grateful for. I am grateful for the Nashua community for embracing kava. We've been here for 4 years, and if it wasn't for the public embracing and developing this relationship with Rude Awakening, kava, and the people that's frequent here, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. So thank you to the Nashua community, and of course, not cheers, but bula. So that's 10 ounces. Normally, you throw it right down. You kind of, take it almost, one gulp if you can. So after that first shell for me for the day, I almost immediately get that feeling of being rooted. Now you probably wonder why. I've been drinking kava for almost a decade now, and just that first one, I feel that feeling. Normally, if you're consuming alcohol, it's going to take you 3 or 4 drinks. If you're you're a frequent drinker or smoke weed or whatever it might be, it takes more to get that feeling. Well, with kava, there's something called a reverse tolerance. So what that means is the more you drink, the less you need. So let me explain. The active ingredient inside this muddy water is called kava lactone. Like you have THC in marijuana, in kava you have kava lactone. Well, it's a sticky molecule. It stays in your blood system roughly 7 to 12 days. And when you drink new kava, that goes into your bloodstream and somehow it finds that old kava and it attaches on and they create this symbiotic relationship, and you almost instantly get that feeling, that rooted feeling. And that's a pretty cool characteristic of kava that you don't really see almost anywhere. You drink coffee, you're going to need 3 or 4 cups of coffee, eventually to kind of get that caffeine effect. So pretty cool, pretty unique, reverse tolerance with kava.